Isa's design is as you label it, as a root manifestor, or as you call it, label, air quotes. There's an awful lot of air quotes and, all the expressions. So root manifestor, so connection from root to spleen. And your splenic definition is wow. Like, wow. I'm just, whoa. I have an, as you said, like I have an open intuition, right? I have this undefined spleen. And so it's all over the place for me. But it's just fascinating to see designs where, especially somebody has quite a bit of emphasis in a center I do not have colored in. And then that goes to throat. And you were talking about the conscious, that personality definition. So your 5720 being black or conscious channel. And then of course you have a split here, and then your head najna is colored in. And so, if I don't know if this is the right time, but there's no time like the present, right? Your root, you talk about how you're a root manifestor, and this is very vague, but how does that feel for you? Like that's a motor. That's one of the 4 motors in the human design chart, and that is an on-off pulse. I have a root, which is
root is not an on-off pulse.
No. Okay, how would you describe it then?
No, it is the pressure to do. The pressure to do. It's pretty much always there. I mean, it pressurizes the sacral. It pressurizes emotions. It pressurizes intuition. So no, it's more of a big gear kind of thing. But in my own root, I carry 3 gates. One of them is my personality moon, but the other 2 are my unconscious Mars, unconscious Mercury. And I'm not conscious of them, but when I watch like interviews or hear myself on a video or something, I'm like, oh my God, listen to that, because that energy of my unconscious Mercury and Mars get carried up through my personality into my speaking voice. So the root manifestor is the only manifestor whose authority is not the motor. And yet there is a tiny bit of awareness in the authority, in the splenic authority, but it's very, very limited. It's only like 1 second of awareness. If we follow what Ra says, it's 1 second of awareness. Like it's just like the sacral response in the moment. It's a yes or a no in the moment at all. So I have this root that's just going. And it is true that when I wake up in the morning, I kind of want to get up and do a thing, like sweep the floor, wipe the countertop, do a thing. And I do have that, like most days I should go for a walk. And it used to be like most days I should go climb up a mountain, but now it's more like go for a walk. But then manifesting, which for me is really just speaking in the now, speaking myself in the now, is supported by that energy, but yet is a different frequency. It's an individual pulse. My penetrating awareness is an individual pulse, but my root is a slow motor that can, pump up different things. Something I've just realized in making the Manifestor Moon Days class that I'm teaching right now is that because both of my moons are in that channel, that 54-32 channel, that beginning of the material way, so to speak, the beginning of the stream of instinct. They're both my moons, my conscious and unconscious moons. So they have built into them variation in their light. So my doing can vary. I used to be like, I do every day. But that was when I had my mother's ego in my presence. That was when I had, a husband where we had ego definition and he had a sacral. So when I'm alone, as I have been a lot in recent years, I can tell that today's just not a day for me to move very much. But it used to be like with my personality, yeah, I can do that every day. Just give me another cup of coffee. Open sacral.
Yeah. So, okay. So I'm glad that you're clarifying this. Now I have heard, and once again, I am, I like to say the double doors are wide open on my route.
Oh, really? Are you undefined down there?
0. Yeah. 0 hanging gates.
Beautiful. Like I've known several
my head,
people like
my
this.
head and my root.
Uh-huh. Right. Okay. I know several people like this. And then look what I do. I pressurize doing and I pressurize thinking.
Mm-hmm.
There's at
Yeah.
least two friends that I've reconnected with here that I've said, hey, by the way, I need you to know this because I have their designs, but they're maybe not in design. And I'm like, I need you to know that I'm aware that I might give you a headache by pressurizing you to think, and you might like get like nervous, like you need to do something when you're around me. I can't
Mm.
change that. It just means let's be sure that we really feel like hanging out when we're together. And if it gets to you feeling too pressurized, just tell me. So,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah,
So I'm
that's
pressurizing you.
brilliant.
Look how fast we got on here. Okay.
I love it.
Okay. I want to hear more.
Yes, it just one of my favorite expressions with the white centers is be a screen, not a sponge. You know, take it in,
Uh-huh.
know it's there, but don't
Right.
right? Because I mean, we're talking about unless you want to deliberately amplify it, right? Take it in and
Mm-hmm.
amplify. And I know people
Mm-hmm.
who are like that. I have some projector friends that are like, give me some of your sacral energy, like, you know,
Right.
just
Uh-huh.
and through invitation, it's like, yes, borrow it, do what you want with it, knock yourself out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm not aware, I just
Mm-hmm.
have, right?
Yeah.
And so so interestingly, because what it has been described in different ways is that if pulse isn't the right word, it's sort of like the pressure is there when you have that definition, right? And then it's not, right? So like you were talking about do and then not do. So how's that really show up for you? Because I'm always, I can feel like I have to watch my adrenals. In fact, with
Mm-hmm.
my naturopath, one of the things she put me on were some herbs to like just every day take care of
Yeah.
my adrenals. And just before I just want to tell this story very specifically. I remember a time where it wasn't long after my dad passed, and I had to, you know, my mom's elderly, and she was, even though she was executor, it was like, you know, she's 90, you know, 89, 90. Like I'm like, no,
Mm-hmm.
it's okay, I got this. And I'm having to deal with all this stuff. And I was in a program, and the coach was sort of one of those rah rah, no excuses, push push push, force force force. And he had a weekend of like write a book in a weekend kind of thing, and I was like, I really just don't want to do this weekend, like this is
Mm-hmm.
just too much. And it was
Mm-hmm.
kind of like do it now or you miss your chance kind of thing. I was like, well, screw it. And I gave myself zero expectations. I'm like, I don't expect to have a write, like if something pours out of me, fantastic, but I'm not putting the pressure on me to write a book. And
Yeah.
the way it was structured was so pressure and like okay,
Mm-hmm.
sit
Mm-hmm.
down now and write the chapters. And I can tell you my adrenals were just cringing, and they were like just at the point of overdrive. I mean, I probably should
Yeah.
have turned off the recording, but I just got to the point where I'm like, what I will do is I will sit here through the session, and when we have to write, if I write something that's great. And I was literally like, I don't know what to write. I don't know what to write. There's nothing in me
Mm-hmm.
right now, you know, because the pressure was just more and it was overriding everything else. And that was probably the last time, but such a remarkably significant time where my adrenals were like overload, overload, overload. And I was so thankful at that point to understand human design, because then I wasn't judging me,
Yeah.
how I was feeling. Like, I should handle this pressure, you know, come on, snap out of it. Right. None of that conversation was happening. It
Right.
was like, adrenals are on overdrive. It's okay. You
Mm-hmm.
just need a break. So,
Yeah, that's homogenized advice that he was giving you.
yes.
When you're ready to write, I've seen your design. I know that whatever will come out of you. Like I would saw your design like, well, she can just do whatever she, like as long as she gets clear, she has so much energy to work
Yes.
with, and
Clear. And it's a
it's gonna be
yes.
supportive and mutate and empowering, and so yeah, that's the beauty of uniqueness.
So tell me about your route.
Called a very driven person.
Okay.
Okay, and it is the channel. I'm forgetting my keynotes right now. It's like the channel of drive, ambition. Is it
Let me
called
put
the
it back
channel
on.
of drive? The channel of transformation, a design of being driven. I think it's called the channel. Yeah, transformation and design of being driven.
Yes.
So I was known through all my school years as being very driven and really high achieving. And eventually, so just get up and do what I want to do. And but I was always, I mean, I thought I was playing in with what the school wanted me to do too. Like I played in all those systems and the teams and the groups and whatever. But I would say the word driven has been applied to me a lot. But in like the past 3 years, especially related to having a broken leg that happened in December 2020, and maybe some years of yoga before that, like yin yoga, I got to understand that that stillness feels really good. It's really peaceful. I really like the peace of that. And you talked about adrenals and adrenal fatigue. I'm remembering right now when I was here in 2015, 16, and here in Costa Rica, talking to someone about adrenal fatigue. And I had left the United States late 2015. I didn't expect to end up in Costa Rica at all, but I did. And then in talking about adrenal stuff, he was getting me to think that I needed to eat the adrenal glands of like bison to try to restore my own adrenals. And that sounded really logical and necessary for me, actually. I've never actually done that, although I'm not saying it's a bad idea. But now I don't even drink coffee right now. Like I have loved coffee, and there's this feeling when I take it in, like this is this drive thing. Like this is like meeting me, and it's pushing me, but it's not pushing and meeting my body's energy. It's not my design that's driven. It's my personality that's driven. So I think so much of what has happened in that drive is it's a personality drive, right? And what I actually have as my design moon in my splenic center is actually called like conservation. It's like one of like the most conservative gate in the whole body graph. And I'm not conscious of it, so I'm not aware of what other people see about it. But maybe that's part of why I have in the past like said, why don't you do more? Because maybe my unconscious moon is actually slowing me down, but my personality is saying, do this. And the American culture that I grew up in Oregon, and athletics and extreme sports and stuff like that was all like, so I think that's my root channel.
And that's why I like the explanation that you made, and I'll just keep on popping your chart up.
Yeah, that's great.
That's
It helps me.
Extremely valid, yeah, in this conversation for people to see. And so that's, I mean, that's an important part. And when you're talking about your environment, particularly because you have your G center, I like to call it identity,
Me too.
that center, yes, that center of that center being white is going to be extremely sensitive to environment, right? Healthy environments for you.
And I've lived in environments of addicts and athletes and adrenaline, and like we identify by how many sports we did in a day. Like I was really, my body really did that. But now I'm looking back, I'm like, it was my personality telling my body to do that because I was looking for an identity. I was proving myself.
Yes. Yeah, very much so. And with your will center, heart center, what did you call it? I'm sorry.
I like calling it
undefined head and ajna.
I say open. I like to say my open, right, my open heart center.
Heart. I love that. Yes, your open heart. You told me a story before we jumped on the recording, and you were talking about other people and their definition, or maybe the connections and defining the will center and the heart center, and how that was impacting you in terms of your doing or your actions or your thinking. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that? Because I think when people think manifestor, they think, the just go out and do it. And, all of those, I mean, it works very differently for different people. You have an awful lot of openness, and you also, I mean, you have a fair amount of openness. I'm going to say, to me, like when I see 3 open motors, right? Undefined, like that just really changes dynamics compared to somebody who might have, those motors defined. And of course, your the G center, the identity center. So can you just summarize a little bit or reiterate for people who are trying to really tap into that experience, particularly as a manifestor, trying to find their place? And like you said, sometimes competition and things happening, and people having their just their nature being ignored or suppressed,
one of my biggest lessons about manifestors in the last 3 years since I started teaching manifestors, getting to interact, because by the way, it's really hard to actually even meet other manifestors like in your life on a normal basis. Like it's pretty rare. So I had the opportunity to be able to say, I'm teaching just manifestors and in LYD for a while. And that really helped me feel out and hear the frequency and observe the actions, and to recognize that I am very different than an emotional manifestor. They have a really powerful motor right to the throat. And all they have to do, I mean, all they have to do, I know it's not easy, but all they have to do is wait and feel it. And then it's going to happen. It's going to happen when they feel it. And then the ego manifestor is just like, right now, no awareness. I'm just doing that. I'm doing that and whatever. Maybe it takes a while to know whether they feel it or not, but their motor's directly to the throat, the direct manifesting channels. My story is really different that way. The things I achieved way back when were like, I wake up every morning at 5:30. I'm in the pool by 6. I'm on the way to the office by 7. I scheduled and forced myself to get things done in somebody else's system. Since leaving the United States and leaving the law profession and all those requirements that kept me having to function that way that I taught myself to function as a teenager, there are days when I don't do anything. I mean, really, just I feed myself, and maybe my accomplishment was cleaning the bathroom or not even cleaning the bathroom. Like there have been days where I just read a book. And I feel how peaceful that is. And I can observe the differences in my body and the things that people say to me about how my frequency sounds. Yeah. So I'm really different. The projected channel manifestors are very different. Our aura is the same. And it's not fun to see projected channel manifestors pretending they're projectors because their aura is saying the same thing, but it just works differently. What they have to work with inside of that. So there's one level.